Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the JAMODI Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information.
We talked a lot about confidence in coaches and how we need to have it, but we also need to help our players with their confidence. I'm a believer that we don't create confidence in our players, that they have to create that themselves, protect it through the hard work, but we can influence and maybe we can help it grow. What are some things that you do to build confidence in your players?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You kind of stole the thunder a little bit with the word of it, but the only way I know how to build confidence is to work at something. And you're never going to be a great golfer if you're not on the range, right? You're never going to be a great shooter if you're not practicing. You're never going to be great at something if you don't practice it. And so you have to actually spend the time and go out there and work on your game, and you build confidence through that. And then when you bring that confidence to the floor, for whether it be in practice or whether it be in the game, now that's where the coaching probably comes in of okay, I told, John Doe that if he works on his 3-point shot, I'll let him shoot. Okay. Well, what you can't do is the first time he misses it, be like, don't shoot that shot again. It sounds simple, but it can negate everything they did in the summer with one comment.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it. I've heard, well, a guy gets in the transfer portal and it's well, why do you want to transfer? Well, because coach, in January said I don't want you to shoot that again. One comment. And that's all it takes, because that's all they remember. And so you have to be really careful, because you still need to have role identification. And you don't want just everybody feeling like they can shoot whatever shot they want. That's not the best way to be a good team, right? At least in my experience. I'm talking to an offensive guy, but that's been my experience. Is there has to be guys that know what they're good at, and you can't just let everybody shoot the exact same shot. But
no doubt,
also you have to help guys. If you're going to tell them work on this, then when they come back in the fall and they've gotten better at it, but they still have to be able to build the confidence within practice and games. You can't crush them when it doesn't go well the first couple times, if that's something that you've told them that you want them to have confidence in. So I think making sure in your self-awareness of how you're handling those situations and how impactful a single word can be when it's talking about individual offensive game. Because I'm telling you, nothing cuts deeper and faster and harder than talking down on someone's offensive game. Nothing. Not in basketball. There's not one thing that'll cut down a player's confidence more than when you talk about their offense.
That's big time. And the power of words, that's what I wrote down. Is I think when you mentioned that, I know I thought of the countless throwaway statements over the years that I've done that I didn't even realize how much that hurt or how deep that went. And so being conscious of what we're saying, huge, man. And you nailed it with, especially on the offensive side. And we do shoot a lot of threes, and don't shoot that or stop shooting that isn't something that I say. But you said it, you nailed it though. It comes from role identification, shot selection scale that everybody is on the same page with. That's day one of practice or workouts, in my opinion. And then also the shooting games or individual skill work or something where They are constantly being, a hierarchy is developing. So when Johnny is taking 10 threes a game, no one says anything about it because of the work that we've all seen him put in. I'm far below him, so I probably only get one or two. But I think the way that we communicate those, whether it's with kind of that sandwich effect of a positive, there's the criticism and then a positive, where I've heard some coaches say, man, it's a 6-to-1 ratio, 6 positive things to that one that you're maybe, it's the critique, it's the instruction. I don't know, however you do it, but I think being conscious of what we say, huge.
Yeah, and you know, when we were beginning at North Texas, Ben McCollum was at Northwest Missouri State, was having a ton of success. So Mac became really close with him. Grant McCaslin got really close with Ben McCollum. Both their nicknames are Mac, so it can get a little confusing.
Okay.
And the one thing that Coach McCollum always said was, whether it's completely true or not, and some of it's coach speak, is he tried not to tell them what not to do. He would just try to tell them what to do, right? So, hey, when in this situation, like drive it hard, or cut from the corner, or like do some different things rather than saying, don't shoot that shot. Just be like, hey, look, when a guy's attacking you, like drive that closeout. So now you can kick it, and then maybe you can relocate, and maybe you can shoot the next one that's wide open, or just trying to navigate those situations with different words rather than just saying, don't shoot that shot, or we don't want you shooting threes, or, just different ways that you can navigate it where you can, fix the words enough where it doesn't feel like you're just completely taking their confidence away from them, but also making sure they know, like, when they close out like this, you need to drive it, because this is going to help us get points in the paint, or you need to cut here because of guys lost vision of you, or whatever it may be. Like those things, just using your words in a different way that can help them understand something without crushing their confidence.
If they truly are co-creators with us of either culture or the way that we're playing, and I mean, you played, I used to play, but coach, it's been 25 years since I took a shot. Like I won't take one ever again in a game, and so I need them really being on board with what we're trying to do. And what stops that is negative reinforcement, negative comment, telling them to stop, don't,
Yep.
anything like that. And this goes back to PGC again. Monowatsa, coach, I hated this at the beginning because I went to PGC to direct, but and this was just as a high school coach, I had no training in it. And Mono's sitting in my first classroom session. If you remember back, to all those classroom sessions, and the one that he came in was cracking the pressure code. So it's about breaking pressure. And it was my time to get up there and do it. And Mono's sitting there my very first session, and the kid falls asleep in the front. And I clap my hands. And I go, hey, wake him up. And everybody straightens up, and he wakes up. So Mono, later on, we're eating dinner, and he's giving me his pages of notes from my court session, from all of this and things. But he's like, Matt, how can we help him make the decision for himself to stay awake rather than pointing at him and demanding and screaming that he get up? But the whole idea was the question method. Like I want, if we're constantly learning through this, I want to help them see, Johnny, rate that shot. What do you think it was? Coach, it was a 6 on our scale. Yeah, you know what? I agree. Why'd you feel like you shot the 6? Well, I haven't touched the ball in a while. I get that. Well, you know what? We do need to move it more. I need you to trust that ball is going to come around to you. That
Yep.
takes a lot more time, coach, than stop shooting dumb shots. That's not your shot. But if I would argue, take the time, ask the questions, get to the root of really what's happening, keep the player engaged and moving towards the goal with us. But it takes effort.
Yep. No, I agree. Completely agree.
I got one more, coach, and then we will do the speed round. These will be quick questions that will really get to know who you are. Meeting with players. We've talked a ton about the relationships really that you're building with them, how to communicate. How can you hold somebody accountable and confront them? there has to be that relationship. So I would imagine meeting with players is important. How and when do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can vary depending on the time of year. One of the best relationship coaches I've ever been with or coached under was Earl Grant, who's at Boston College now. I was at the College of Charleston with him. He would always seek out one player before practice, one player after practice every day. He would sit down with them, 10 or 15-minute conversation before practice, 10 or 15-minute conversation after practice with individual guys. And before you know it, you're talking to 2-3 guys every day, and that's just before and after practice. And so if you're able to navigate that, whether it's show them a couple clips of film or talk about whatever, and a lot of people say, well, don't talk about basketball. Well, in different settings, yes, but ultimately, like, they're here to play basketball, and that's really what these guys want to talk about. I mean, they don't want to sit here and talk about their dogs to me. They will, right? They don't want to sit and talk about their favorite restaurant or their favorite rapper or their favorite country artist or whatever it may be. Like, those conversations, they're like, Coach, like, I mean, let's talk hoops, right? In those settings. Now, when you get them up here individually in your office and you can talk about life, you can talk about their future, you can talk about their family, you can talk about a lot of different things. But when you're in a setting at practice, like, show them a couple clips, give them some confidence, give them some positive words. I think is always impactful when you can get them short doses, short bursts of communication with them to feel like they've gotten some attention, right? Everybody likes attention. I like attention. My wife likes attention. My dogs like attention. My kids like attention. Everybody likes attention to a certain degree. And so just give some attention and be intentional about it in those settings with before and after practice. And then I'm a big believer in, like, if you're around here, okay, and some of the places that people may work aren't this way. Our practice gym is literally right outside of my office. Okay. And look, if you're up here getting extra shots at night and I'm here, come up to the office for 5 minutes. Like, I don't want to be, you can set meetings and try to get like one guy for 15 minutes and then schedule another guy for 15 and do it all the way throughout the day if you like. I mean, I think those times, there are times that call for that. But if you can get the guys to want to come up to the office and to want to come through the office where the coaches are whenever they're up here, I think that's the most advantageous, and has probably brought the most connected conversations is when those happen, because they're not structured. They're just like off the cuff, and you're not necessarily bringing them in to talk about a certain thing that's been on your mind. So is there room for all the other conversations? Absolutely. But I am a big believer in catching people before and after practice, and then when they're up here getting their own work in, or when they're in the training room or in the weight room getting extra work, whatever it may be, like, come through the office, even if it's for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? And so I think those are the best ways to communicate and meet with players.
I think you're right that you can go overboard either way. I think you nailed it. It's both. It's structured and then it's random. But you're really, I think you're talking about culture. Have you set up a culture where guys know that coach wants me to come by when I'm here? But he is encouraging it. He's going to say, "Hey, I think I saw you shooting. You didn't come by." Like it, I think instead of knock and coach, sorry to bother you, if they know that there's no such thing. I mean, I was terrified to go to my coach's office in college, Coach Bliss. In fact, the one time that when we would walk in, the secretary sometimes would be like, "It's okay." She would let me know, like, it's nothing bad. Oh, thanks. Okay. So you don't want that, but then also I wouldn't, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't apologize for talking about basketball. It's what they love to do. You're
Yep.
kind of important in that way to them, and you guys both love it. You have that in common. I may not have a lot of common with these 18-year-olds now as a 43-year-old. We definitely don't listen to the same music. I don't know a lot of the pop references or culture that they talk about, but man, hoops, we can talk about that. I think every
Yep.
player wants to feel like this person can help me get better.
No
And what
question.
better way then watching some film, having, you know what, hey, I watched the game last night. I was thinking about you when I saw this. And then, so I believe it's a combination of, you got to have a little structure to it, like your coach had with one before, one after, one or two, and probably having a list of the guys that he hasn't hit. Because if you're just hoping that it happens, it's not going to hope. It's not going to happen, right? Don't base our game on hope, but then open up the opportunities and the culture for the random talks, because sometimes those are the best ones.
No question. Those are always the best ones, in my opinion.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.